Alright, Bethany, let's take a look at your paper. Emily citation first. This looks good. Everything over here looks good. Journey to acceptance. It's okay. If there's some way you could tie it into the theme of the dagger, I think that'd be kind of a cool tie-in too. Alright, for one thing, make sure that your tab is over. You got too many tabs here. Roller coaster of emotions, even though it is figurative language, it's kind of a cliche. Through the ups and downs, comma, I've learned a lot about myself. Here's a good language fix-up too, to learn a lot about yourself. I think you can probably restate that a little bit better. For example, and you go on from there. So at one point in Shakespeare's play Macbeth, you don't need the comma there because it's kind of acting like an adjective, his play Macbeth. So you don't need the comma there. I love the idea that it was searching for something that wasn't genuine and tying that back in. That's good. For friendship and romantic relationships, comma, I was looking for a sense of belonging in all the wrong places. You still need, this is kind of acting as your preview, but you still need an actual preview where you're going to take the reader through the parts of your speech, or parts of your paper. And then you get to your thesis statement. Through this 4-year journey, comma, I've learned where to look for acceptance and how to accept myself. I don't know if we worked on this or not, but I definitely think this can be stronger because where do you look for acceptance and how do you accept yourself? And use these examples down here to prove that. And that's where you can get a little bit stronger sense of a thesis. Alright, so your first paragraph about your freshman year and your friend situation during it. Lots of a great voice in here, Bethany. I think that's probably the one thing that I could say the most about your paper thus far is you do have a great voice. I really do get that sense from this paper. Even though this isn't much of a sentence, that idea comes ringing through, and that even is almost like you're joking, and so that's almost like a form of reflection as well. So that's kind of interesting. I like that you put that in there. But you have good examples in here. A couple of punctuation errors as well. From then on, comma, it became less about stuff like that. Once I started taking pills, comma, I developed a daily routine. This is a run-on sentence, so you want to fix that. And then I would often wonder, so you got to put this in present tense because it's at the time. Another comma after decreased. So as my drug use increased and the respect I had for my superiors decreased, comma, I began to lash out. So that's something you want to work on as well. Now, even though I told you there's a couple places you did do a reflection, you are going to need, I think, some more reflection, more looking back on it. I don't think there's enough there. So it left your home life in shambles, which I think is leading into this next paragraph about your mother. Alright, this is a good example of where your thesis statement could be a little bit more specific, because it is about your mother, but it's also about her sort of letting you go in order for you to get better, which is down here with the Wimmers. So again, you have some great details in here. You don't need to say very, she's strong-willed and opinionated. Very doesn't do anything for you there. A wild needs to be one word. But you definitely have a lot of punctuation errors with, especially with commas here. Whenever I was feeling irritated, I was told no, comma. In the middle of all the chaos, comma. And that's the case of the two prepositional phrases back to back. You need to put a comma in there. Upon my decision, comma, my mother continued. At this point, I was raging. So this is the part where I think it really gets good into your details here. As she turned around and stood up, comma, I saw the blood dripping. So anyways, there's just a lot of commas there. So you need to go back through and figure out where when you start with these prepositional phrases, do you have another prepositional phrase that needs to be in there? Thankfully, when you start with those adverbs, comma, this is a run-on sentence that you will need to fix. So anyways, go back through and try to fix some of those places, even though, again, this is more about, and I like that you eventually get down to acceptance, and I think you even reflect on the Wimmers and their acceptance, and I don't know if you're going to talk about them more in here, but I guess you go a little bit down here, but that might be a good place to reflect back on their in your life as well. And it's interesting that you start off with the idea that you grasp for romantic attention, but really the only thing that talks about romance is here, and then it's like two sentences. So really this paragraph is about you finding um, maybe solace in yourself or security in, you know, and what you know of God's love. So I think that might be that first sentence might need to be more specific to that. You do again have some punctuation in here, errors in here. Through the 6-week experience, comma, flip flop that sentence. Will it still make sense? Yes. So definitely go through and look at some places that you can fix that. Here's a good example of not needing to use a comma when you have a conjunction. Make friendships that will last a lifetime is not a complete sentence, so you don't need that comma there. And again, you have some good details. I think you can even add some more imagery, especially about the idea of that looks over a beautiful rocky area. Give me some colors, give me some specific imagery, something in there that will help the reader see that a little bit more clearly. So then you get to the relationship, but again, it didn't last long. So is this paragraph really about relationships? But it's really about what you learned at camp that's important. So that's what I would focus on in that topic sentence at the top there. And strong transition. How do you transition to this next paragraph, Bethany? All right, so you jump into your junior year, but again, this is really about relationships. So this is the paragraph that I want you to talk about, that building up of relationships, and you're crushing on a senior. And this one is really good about your problem of, your religion versus your need for acceptance, and where do you find that need. But again, how much of this is you looking back on it? I like this part. We had different outlooks in life and disagreed about important things, but I think that's more in the realm of the relationship. Now as you look back, how glad were you that you got out of that relationship? And I don't know, I just feel like there's more places that you can actually reflect on these things, because I feel like all this stuff is in the moment, or shortly after the moment, and not as you're about ready to graduate from high school. How does this feel to you? So go back and look at how you can make that a little bit stronger with reflection. And again, we need a strong topics or a strong transition sentence into the next paragraph. All right, so then you jump into your senior year, and again, this is about college. So let's have a really good topic sentence about your college search and what that meant to you. So keep thinking about if I plan on spending investing that much time and money into my education, comma, I want to enrich me, blah blah blah. Busyness is wrong, so you gotta spell that word right. And again, going back through and fixing some of that. I think when you ask yourself a question like this, even though it's not anyone else's dialogue, so I'd love to see other people's dialogue in here. Capitalize a W. Make sure with that question it's a complete sentence, so you need a capitalization there. I like this idea of less like joining a cult, more like planting a seed. That's a really good statement. Good figurative language as well. So I really like that. The seed should be planted, not panted. Help it grow into a beautiful flower. So you really do add that into this paragraph, which I think is pretty strong there. So keep that up. I like that part. Alright, Bethany, with your conclusion, I really do like your alliteration here. I like that you changed that. And this is basically a repeat of your thesis, which is good. You go back through and you kind of review your main points, and not every single one. So you're going to make sure that you review every single main point. I like the ending. I think the ending is really strong. So that part is really good. I think the last one ties in with the first paragraph or the first statement. Even though it's a little bit of a cliche, it still ties in. So that's good. I think your conclusion is really strong. This is not where it needs to be. I know you got this from online, but it really should start with Shakespeare, comma, William, the name of the piece, which is Macbeth, and then you jump into this information, and eventually you jump into the editors here too. So you might want to relook at that too, because you still need the Shakespeare part. So overall, Bethany, I really like your voice. I really like a lot of the details that you put in. I still think there's some organizational things that we need to work on to make it a little bit stronger, and definitely need to go back and look at punctuation. So fix that up, and I'd love to see another copy of it.